Well, how you doing this morning?
You know what? I'm doing great. A little tired.
Yeah,
Uh,
what were you doing?
so I woke up. I'm catching up on some paperwork. Believe it or not, despite all the entertainment stuff, I'm finishing up a college internship.
Oh, wow,
Uh,
doing it all. Totally
yeah,
Renaissance.
exactly. I'm blessed where my life opened up in a way where I kind of can balance multiple things that didn't seem like they were possible a year ago. So, uh, yeah. So I was getting caffeinated. I had to make sure I had enough time to make it here for the interview. I wanted to make sure I was awake enough and centered enough to be able to talk and make sense.
Yeah, sounds good. This later in the morning, I thought always kind of helps with artists. I mean, usually they're night owls, so that's just the way I always kind of view that. So, what have you been studying? What are you finishing up?
So I'm actually, and what's cool about it is I'm technically like working already. So I'm in the internship part. So I'm actually becoming a licensed mental health counselor.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need that
Uh,
these days. Gosh.
Without a doubt. And
Mhm.
before jumping to this, I was actually a New York City high school teacher, briefly a guidance counselor as well, for almost 15 years. So like this is
Wow.
all of this is like a whole new chapter to my life, and I feel very blessed. A little nervous, like anything new. But yes, mental health is everything. And what I will say is music, martial arts,
Mm.
and education, learning about things, those are like three essential parts that keep me stable and keep me going through all the rough times. So like the fact that I've got my hands involved in all of it at the moment, uh, I've I'm more blessed than most.
Oh, sounds great. So, what is the future? What would you like to do? With be a full-time counselor, a therapist in the city, or thereabouts?
So you know what? Here's what's interesting. It all depends on, I think, uh, the direction that this entertainment world takes me. Uh, let's just say for some reason, because I do the sports, doing the boxing, the
Um,
MMA. I'm also working on my first actual rock album, New Sound, right? Uh, so sometimes I sit here and I'm like, what's gonna happen if suddenly I do blow up, and I'm supposed to go on a world tour. I really love all this other stuff, and it's all part of what I would love to do, right? Um, so truthfully, let's say I did blow up. My dream is to take whatever profits I could get from that and then grow in those other areas too.
yeah.
So like I would love to maybe one day have a clinic that I start specializing in trauma, specializing in maybe LGBTQ related issues, specializing on the youth. Uh, I work actually part of my internship, which is great. I'm working with foster care children. So like all that type of stuff.
Hmm.
I know how many people need love and healing out there. And then to tell you the truth, with the training, I think being physically active is such a part of the mental health too. So like my dream is to, I know this sounds crazy, maybe open up clinics that kind of offer the best of both worlds. Some
Yeah, that's a good
physical
hook.
aspect, right? And then
Yeah.
like the mental health aspects. And yeah, with all those, like I dream of being able to train like foster care children for free with scholarships, right? LGBTQ youth to be able to defend themselves in situations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so who the heck knows? And then there's
Yeah.
that part of me that would love to just keep training, go on a giant rock tour, right? So I'm a unique individual. I'm hoping I could somehow fit all of this into my life. But at the end of the day, I'm also a realist, and being in this music world a little bit, I've already seen some people who have had a lot of success,
Yeah.
but then I also see where they are down the line. And what stands out to me, it's the people with like the plan B's and C's that can either stay in like the music entertainment world while growing elsewhere,
Oh,
and
yeah.
those without the plans B, and or they can leave and just grow. And those without the backup plans, well, they often just it's like they peaked, and some of them it's really sad. Some are great people, but they're struggling financially, right? Some people don't even know who they were from 20 years ago. They were world famous, and now they could walk into a room and most people wouldn't recognize them. So like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where I often like I need to focus on this counseling, if that makes sense as well.
Yeah, it's always good to have a fallback position. Music, and I talk to a lot of artists. It is tough. I mean, once you've had some people that we've known, major success, and there's a heyday, and what do you do from that? And that's got to be really tough if you haven't handled it well. And yeah, you're walking in a room and like nobody notices you anymore, and you once had your big hits, and you were just doing so fabulous. So yeah, music, it's a fickle, tough business, but it could also be rewarding. It's what you make of it.
Yes. And you know what? Like you said, the rewarding part, anytime I'm on a stage, I don't care if people like what I'm performing in that moment. It's therapy for me. Like I
Yeah,
feel great, right?
you got to
So
feel
yeah,
10 feet tall. Yeah, totally.
yes.
Hmm.
Uh,
So where do you perform? Are you doing a lot of like live performance in the Northeast over there?
so no, it's really funny. It depends on the time period in my different musical, I guess, endeavors or so up to this point, a lot of my music has been experimental. Some of it wasn't so serious. So part of my story, I guess I'll fill you in. I actually kind of started. I'm gonna cut out a lot of this, like the earlier influences. But as I was a New York City high school teacher, I
Hmm.
started this after school program
Hmm.
to help kids make music for free. Originally, we tried to make it a beat making program, and then it kind of morphed into like a hip hop club. Uh, so let's just say I was always a hip hop head growing up, but I was also like a rock, metal, alternative head. Uh, but because of where I was, because I was doing it for the kids,
Yeah.
that was the main focus. So I've largely done a lot of hip hop. I've done some EDM. I went to music production school. I had this awesome guy who's a producer and an engineer that helped me start the program. And I had no idea at first that he's busy recording like the biggest artists in the world on his during his real job. So imagine with the help of some people, like the kids, this engineer slash producer, and then just everything I was going through because I was going through a lot, being a little different on the job in society. Uh, I suddenly found that I was using these hip hop tracks with the kids sometimes as like an outlet for myself too. Part of the reason I loved the program, I had kids. Uh, Literally, it grew so big. We had kids from multiple high schools coming. We had college graduates popping in on their vacations, hopping on tracks. Kids were releasing tracks, blowing them up, and before I know it, one day I released this screamo rap on one of their tracks. They ended up leaking it. It kind of went viral. And before I know it, I have all these city kids and college kids wanting to work with me, whether I'm doing a hook on their track for a SoundCloud thing, whether I'm helping produce a beat. And before you know it, I went from there's some hip hop out there that I've been talking about bringing down for years that should not be out there, barely mixed and mastered. I did not find my voice yet. It was kind of like a silly thing. I was doing it. I planned on taking it down. But then when I was going through some stuff in the workplace, which is part of why I left
Oh,
the
sure.
education world,
Yeah, I'm
you know,
sure.
I had the support of the youth, not so much some of the adults. But I'll leave that nasty part out for now.
Yeah, yeah. We all
Uh,
have that.
yeah, but you know what? I suddenly became like a rebel through my music, where I used my identity. And when I was going through, I kind of got lyrical. And these kids taught me how to stay on rhythm. But guess what? As I was making all this music and performing in little city shows, right?
Good.
It started in like the Northeast, right? Because I was teaching in New York
Yeah.
City. Before I know it, we're getting more attention. I'm getting silly interviews. And then I'd say a big turning point was I signed a contract to open for a controversial rapper, Takashi 69.
Mm.
And part of my story with the kids was when Takashi was first blowing up, I was like, yo, I kind of don't get this. He sounds almost like a rocker screaming on the mic, right? I was like, I could do that, right? And that's part of the reason why I just whipped out a growl, right? And
Just
going
do it.
back to high school, my friends in bands always wanted me to be their like metal band singer, right? So let's just say I kept hearing from people like, "Yo, you sound like Fred Durst," right?
Yeah, right, right.
Uh, so I kind of knew that I think my voice and who I am as a person was meant for a different style. Uh, so what I ended up doing was when I got more attention, I went down to South by Southwest, performed all these shows, and what I've been doing for the last year is I've been testing out to different crowds. I was down in Miami, all this unreleased music, and it was largely screamo hip hop. And what I noticed was either people loved it or they were just like kind of shocked and blown away because it was so different, unique, yet also authentic. And coming on stage, full makeup, full glam. Uh, a lot of these people don't know me at first. They're assuming a different sound and a different voice. And I love that my aesthetic doesn't exactly match. And that's part of what blows people away. I've had people at some of these shows like come up afterwards and they're like, yo, your energy is hard to match. I've gotten round of applauses. I've also been booed off some stages.
Yeah, it
It,
happens. Yeah, it
yes,
does.
it's
It's going
so
on.
like but what I'll say is this. I recently performed, opened up for DaBaby back down in Texas.
Wow.
And it was a new crowd and I studied the crowd and I studied like who was really reacting to me. And it was in that moment I kind of already knew, but I was like, you know what? This is
Hmm.
like my farewell from hip hop. And from this point on, it's going to be the sound I knew I was meant to make. Uh, so what has me really excited is I'm speaking with people, some rock legends, metal legends. I'm going to be working in early January with this awesome non-binary producer that's been Grammy nominated,
Okay.
worked with legends. We vibe out. There's also this leader of a famous metal band I've been talking with that kind of wants to be like a mentor for me. So like suddenly I have these people, and I won't say so much, but they're like, "Yo, I was talking about you with so and so," and just imagine like a legend that I grew up admiring,
Yeah.
right? So here's the truth. I haven't really released much. I just dropped a new rock rap. So it's almost like, how do I put this? What I started doing, experimenting with the hip hop producers that I'm used to, we kind of made like a rap rock sound, almost Limp Bizkit-y, but enough of
Hmm.
my own, right? We
And this
just
is snakes. Is it Snakes and Gates? Is that
yes,
the?
snakes and
Yeah.
gators. So this is almost like an intro, but the truth is, what's coming next is going to be more like very very rock influenced, right? Like live instruments. We're gonna keep some of that hip hop, right? And what I'm thinking of doing is my album will probably be like half rap rock and then half like rock, right? Um, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm really excited for because I think with the rap rock, I kind of got my sound. With the other stuff, working with these other people, they're gonna bring me to a whole nother level. Uh, so yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how people react. But guess what? Going back to some of the people I make hip hop with, I remember when I first played Snakes and Gates to them, and I've been on a lot of tracks with these people, some released, some not. I remember just a lot of them were like, "That's your sound," right? Like they were being authentic. You found it,
Yeah.
right? Like, so yeah. And you know what? I'm hoping that my sound gets unique enough that people, rather than being like, "Oh, that sounded like Fred Durst," or occasionally I've heard like, "Yo, you sound like ICP or Eminem," right? I want
Yeah.
people to be like, "Yo, that sounds like Brady Bunch."
Right, right. You're creating your own thing, but you know where your influences are at. It's just you to everybody derives. I say this all the time. Everybody derives off of something, their inspirations in your case. So yeah, you're making this your own. And interesting. Where does the title come from? Snakes and Gates.
All right, so part of what's interesting is in this hip hop world, and also I'll say the music industry in general, but more so in the hip hop world, and also tied to the past that I'm not going to fully go into. But the disgusting stuff and the disgusting humans that I ran into that did really, really horrific, discriminatory, retaliatory stuff to me over years and years and years, right? And what I will say is I survived and I won. Uh, but part of my history is there's been certain individuals who have acted as if they had my back and
Mm.
support when really they did not.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
a sad part of my reality is I'm pretty good at catching on to this early. Um, and I often, it's hard for me to really fully trust some people for someone that I've been through being different. So what really broke my heart was when some of things were really going down, the peak of trouble in my life. Uh, there were certain people that really had my back, and there were
Yeah.
certain people that I expected to be there for me, and they weren't. Some literally tried to sabotage me in different ways. As silly as it sounds, there's been times in the music world where my life was in danger. People have tried to set me up to get mugged, stuff like that.
Mm.
Uh, and that's why I started making EDM for a little bit. I wanted to create some space from the circles I was in until I felt like enough distance was created. Um, so the snakes I'm referring to are those sneaky
Yeah.
people that whether I knew early on or whether I had to learn while being stabbed in the back, uh, that were out there creeping. Uh, and then the gates kind of it's kind of got two meanings. So I have like some line in there like Bill Gates didn't make it on his first try. Once everybody left, he finally got it right. And that's sort of how I felt was like, yo, it took me getting stabbed in the back and then
Right.
a proactively cutting people loose and then reactively creating distance. And I recently ran into this again. Part of my story in this year, I had someone on my team that promised me the world, was going to handle things, take things over, and it led to just a regression of everything. And I just recently got rid of them. I have love for them, but what I'll say is this: they were selling me inaccurate truths with some. Basically, what I will say is this: now that the snakes are gone, I did my St. Patrick thing. The gatekeepers are more easily broken through, right?
Good.
And
Yeah.
that's where I really do have whether I'm an indie sensation next year with this rock stuff, no matter what it is, I feel positive about the direction I'm headed in. Now that these snakes are gone, yeah. So that's basically, and guess what else? It sums up a lot of my last year. I won a boxing belt for
Yeah, how
celebrity
about that? The
boxing.
grueling training that goes into that. So how did the whole boxing thing get mixed in with rapping and doing all your education, everything? That's just like you're all it's everywhere.
All right. So how did I put this? So what I will say, I've kind of been a little vague. I was in federal court
Hmm.
related to what was going on in the workplace, and they settled in March with me after a long, long battle.
Court is not fun.
Not fun at all.
It's like, oh
Um,
gosh.
so what I will say is this, though: the disgusting things that were being done to me. That's why
Mm.
I kind of did use my music to not be silenced. And there were certain people that knew the songs that weren't released that I was going to perform at South by Southwest. They heard them. They knew they were about them. So right around that time in March, the same week where I'm being told they want to settle, I'm also being reached out to by celebrity boxing. So like the timing, that's what I mean. You get rid of some snakes, things open up a bit. So how do I put this? Suddenly I had a cleared schedule because the city was like, it's got to be immediate. You got to resign by this date, right? Which is so
Mm.
crazy. There's a teacher shortage, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
there is.
but guess what?
Um,
I resigned and suddenly I had all the time in the world to heal a bit and focus on my passions, right? Uh, when I was younger, I was an athlete. I did some martial arts. I was a big wrestler. Uh, I did a little Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I gave it all up because I knew the lifestyle choices that I was gonna make. Uh, because I didn't think there would be a world for someone like me. Uh, and I'd say through all of the pain and all the denials, part of the story is like the city was informed. Legally, I was the only person who was supposed to get a promotion, right? And I won't even tell
Oh,
you the disgusting stuff they
oh
did
yeah.
afterwards, based on qualifications and seniority and the city's contract, and just they ignore it, right? I'm sorry, ADHD moment.
Yeah.
Often get just denied opportunities that I've earned and deserved, right?
Mm, mm,
So I'd say part of it was like, yo, a lot of people don't want someone like me competing in sports. Well, screw you
yeah.
all. I deserve the right to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I know what makes me a little bit different is I compete against cisgender biological men or trans women. Those are the opponents I want to fight. But that's for me personally. So around that time, originally Celebrity Boxing reached out because tied to my South by Southwest stuff, I had an interview with a popular like New York City region DJ that was on Love and Hip Hop. And on this, we talked about like the silly feud I had with Little Nas X fans that love to hate on me. So sometimes I tease Little Nas X, but really I love Little Nas X, but more so to like mess with Little Nas X's fans. So on this, I talked about wanting to box Little Nas X and some other
Wow.
people. I hyped myself up. And then before you know it, like Celebrity Boxing is trying to get me to have the first ever trans versus trans fight, which I was all for. And then what ended up happening was two things. One, that person that came into my life promising all this stuff, well, they kind of screwed some stuff up. Uh, and then the other thing was we kept having the trans women that would show up would chicken out and back out. It would either be they
Mm,
wanted more money, which they didn't really deserve what they wanted, I'll be honest. I've heard some of the numbers. Or B,
wow.
they were scared. They chickened out, right? So imagine they ended up canceling my fight, which had me
Mm,
so disappointed.
yeah.
Caitlyn Jenner was originally gonna be the guest referee, supposedly. She backed out. Uh,
Yeah.
but guess what? At this point, I literally had changed my physique, was training in the gym 6, 7 days a week, both lifting, boxing, eventually jumped to a kickboxing gym, Muay Thai. Now I'm doing the MMA as well, right? I'm doing it all. And I just got to the point where I'm down to fight whoever would want to fight me, where it was at least fair enough, right? I'm all about matchmakers making fair matches. So imagine one of my inspirations was this Thai uh, ladyboy, Thai fighter that literally has changed the world over in Thailand. They changed their laws so she could fight in a certain arena because, there were certain rules, and she's been just beating the crap out of men. She gets standing ovations. And part of me was just like, yeah, I would love to do that too. So
Yeah.
I manifested it. And then I ended up finding an opponent that was down to do it. I think he quickly regretted taking on the match because I think he thought it would be easy. And I ended up winning in October.
Great.
And what's really cool is it's not 100% official, but as of yesterday, I got a call from the organization that claims they have finally found an opponent, a worthy opponent that is trans.
Mm,
Uh, and they've trained in the past. They're actually bigger than me. I'm a little intimidated, uh, but I'm here for the challenge. And it sounds like we might be fighting this March in the actual first ever trans versus trans fight, uh, which would be awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm a little all over the place. I love to talk.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
ADHD.
that's cool. That's because it's
Uh,
a really, really interesting story. And then how, it's very unique. And being the first at doing this and getting that division championship is really incredibly impressive.
yes. Um. So yeah, and yeah, this is I have so much fun doing it. And I really do hope I inspire young trans athletes to just go train or chase their dreams. And I understand it's controversial in certain areas,
Mhm.
but guess what? Let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
all learn. Let's let's I'm here for the conversations. And what's
Yeah.
fascinating is, it's amazing how the media doesn't want to give me, and there's other trans women fighting out there, fighting men in certain organizations, right?
Yeah.
The media doesn't really want to talk about it. But when someone like myself ends up fighting a cisgender female in these matches, it's all over the news.
Yeah, then it becomes this political hot potato. And it has been. I've been here in Georgia. This was like in political ads, these kind of things. Yeah, then it becomes news.
Right? So like at this point, my belief is I hear people reference science and all that. My belief is there's not enough science out there for anyone to be like definitive, but here's the truth. When it comes to me, there was a certain time period where I had testosterone going through my veins. I have sisters. Both of them were incredible athletes, but truthfully, I would easily finish them in the fight. And that's where I don't want to make anyone upset on either side, but here's the truth. I've trained for this, and when it comes to martial arts, it's all about competitors of equal background coming to meet each other. So I have heard the organization is really happy to finally get a fight with another trans fighter because after I beat that man, they were basically telling me how hard it is to get any other guy to want to fight me anyway, uh, just in case they
Sure.
lose. Um,
Right.
so yeah, uh, yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's that is it's a tough thing. There's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of let's have the conversation. We should. So yeah, absolutely. So you're back in the studio. You are putting together, you want a full-length album now?
Yeah. So you know what? Uh, I'm still trying to decide if it's going to be an EP or an LP.
And you've
Uh,
put out an EP before. Is that what I've come across?
please, I don't want anyone looking at that.
Okay, we'll totally forget that. Yeah,
Right? That's
well,
like
but it's practice, right?
yes, that was the very early. Don't even want to go there, right? Uh,
Yeah,
in
once
fact,
you put those things out there, I mean, they're out there forever, right?
yes.
In
And
computer land.
what makes me laugh is I don't know if you know the rapper Cardi B, but like if you go listen to her mixtapes before she finally had her giant hit, is solidified as like hip hop royalty. It's like, oh my God, someone took her under their wing and taught her how to do it, right? So some people tell me to keep that stuff out there. I can't stand it. It'll all be down soon. Because I want people to just find my best stuff, if that makes
Sure,
sense.
sure, sure. It will
Uh,
always be there. And you know what? Years and years later, you have a lot of success, and they'll go back, that wasn't so bad. What a classic that was. And they repackage things. I've seen so many artists do that. They're so embarrassed by this very early work. And then somehow years later, it becomes, yeah, it ages well on the shelf.
I love that. Who knows? Maybe
You
a
never
rebirth
know.
will be coming, right? Uh, but yeah, I who knows? And you know what's been really
Yeah.
fun too? Random side note about my life. Through this fighting, I now get invited onto like fight podcasts. And some of the podcasts have asked me to come back. Uh, so I've been like the guest co-host for some of these podcasts now, and I
Yeah.
get to interview like UFC fight legends, right? Uh, so like this has been so much fun. Like I feel like a little kid getting to talk with like superstars.
Yeah.
So my dream is one day actually I would love to maybe have my own uh, occasional podcast interviewing some rock legends and stuff like that too. Uh, who knows, right? But right now, with all the fighting, yeah, it's it's been a trip.
Absolutely. I like snakes and gates. You do some other name checking in there. Somehow Chris Rock ends up in there and Jack Harlow.
Yes.
Love that. Keep it very current.
So you know what? What I love about that song is when I laid those tracks down. It was probably like right around the Chris Rock incident. But what I like is like I didn't have to go back and really change anything because most things in there are still relevant, right? And I love name dropping. I love bringing up like pop culture, and that's where like even some of my earlier tracks. There's like one track maybe from that EP I'm not embarrassed about. But like people were like, "Oh man, you made me laugh. You mentioned Enrique Iglesias, right?" Like,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so like I do get lyrical at points, and that's what I hope I can do with the rock. Meaning, I don't want to lose that part of my music, right? So like I imagine some are gonna be more like classic rock tracks, right? With some singing, I'm hoping, and all that. But I gotta keep the hip hop references and
Yeah, yeah. It's all
yeah.
part of it. So, you talk much about your childhood? I know some people would rather forget and move on. You grew up in Long Island?
Yeah. Um, I can talk all about my childhood. Uh, so I grew up in Long Island, New York. Um, Technically Huntington. Uh, Interesting area, very diverse, multiple schools,
Cool.
from mansions on the water in one area, to wide polarizing different communities, different schools. But what made it really awesome was kind of everybody kind of meshed in a way, right? So I grew up with people from all different backgrounds, but I actually went to one of the smaller schools in the area. It was the Harborfield School District.
Hmm.
And I feel very blessed because I got a great education, um, which is so much. But even before that, so I'm neurodivergent. I've mentioned the ADHD,
Yeah.
but I also have autism, believe it or not. And when I was really young, I went to a special needs preschool. Uh, I had extreme speech issues and whatnot. I was not very social at first. Was withdrawn, like classic uh, autistic symptoms, and I feel very blessed that I was able to get the help that I needed early. And
Yeah,
before
that's
you
very
know it,
important. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and I caught up quickly. And then there I am talking in kindergarten, right? Still got made fun of for like people thought I was from another country, accent wise, right? Uh, but guess what? Uh, there I was talking. I was actually in the preschool before I left. I was the star of the school play, which shows just
Mm,
how much growth I did have. Hold on one sec. I hear
yeah.
an alarm going off. Let me
Uh,
just.
some kind of strange little alarm going on there. We'll take a little break here as we're going through this podcast, and that was a different kind of an alarm. It sounds like not a smoke alarm. We hope.
No, no, an old uh, an old alarm that shouldn't be going off anymore. That's set for a
Sometimes we
reminder.
have something on a setting, and it's like, what? I didn't want to get up today this early. I have this on my phone. It's like, no, no, day to sleep in. But yeah, growing up, Long Island. So that's good that you had early intervention. You had probably, very good therapists and people who could work with you and get you on track. And look, how far you've come, and you really face audiences, whether it's doing the boxing or doing the rapping. So I mean, that's a serious kudos to all that early intervention.
Without a doubt. And you know what? I think that the autism definitely gives me some superpowers with the music. I've heard that one rumor is Eminem's on the spectrum. I don't know how true
Yeah,
that is,
I
right?
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're probably more intelligent than the rest. Yeah, whatever that is. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you had to take an IQ test, it would probably be really astounding. I'm sure it would be good.
So you know what's interesting? I did take IQ tests and I was thrown into a gifted program
Huh.
shortly after being in the special needs school. What I will say is this though. I eventually ended up getting an IEP. I definitely have deficits. So like I have what they call like almost like spiky talent. Some areas, yes, through the roof, supposedly gifted. Other areas, for example, the time processing part of the test, I remember like it would come back fourth percentile, which means
Hmm.
96% of people were performing things faster than I was.
Hmm.
Uh, I also had some fine motor issues, but here's the truth. I feel very blessed in despite all the struggles I've had, I'm really happy with the gifts I also have. Um, and 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 part of this story, I think, is people on the spectrum often have special interests and passions. I think part of the reason why people didn't catch on for me so much, I was a special educator, so I worked with some people on the spectrum that were like 20 years old but obsessed with Thomas the Train still. I was lucky in the sense that my passions would not, I guess, be looked at by society as childish or odd, but it was like music, sports, right?
Sure.
Which is where I am today. So like I would say growing up also in Harborfields, Mariah Carey graduated from my high school. She came back and did a special live performance while I was on high school. It was on TV. Jay-Z was there. Got to meet Jay-Z.
Neat, neat.
So like all of that was such a inspiring moment that I was like, yo, she could do this stuff. And you see how she's still making all that money off one Christmas song each
Oh
year,
my
right?
gosh, yeah. I think
Why
she's
can't
sick of that.
yes, I'm sure she is, right?
Wow. Yeah, but wow, the gift that keeps on giving. When an artist gets up to that level, it's they just keep getting the revenue off of that. They're doing really well.
Yep. Who knows? Maybe I'll do
Mm.
a Mariah Carey "All I Want for Christmas" cover, rock cover.
There.
Keep it in the Harbor Fields world. If it's a hit, who knows, right? Mariah may push it. I'm joking. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. That's
but
awesome.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
got a
and
lot of influences there. That's I mean Mariah Carey, obviously.
yes. And what I'll say too is like growing up in my area, a lot of music. I had a punk band that failed. We, my sister's boyfriend, uh, his band was touring on Warped Tour, which was a big influence for me. In fact, I remember he taught me Smashing Pumpkins Today, like on the guitar. One of my earliest memories of him, right? And the Smashing Pumpkins. It was such an impact on me. One of my favorite bands. So yeah, yeah.
Really cool. Yeah, excellent. That's totally fantastic. So what's the recording process like? Where are you doing this and how's this coming together for your new project?
So you know what? It's changed a lot. I used to work out of the same like three studios for a while in the hip hop world, until I came across this producer that helped me make the Snakes and Gates. We have a few tracks we're finishing up that we recorded a while back. Uh, what I love is two of us just got each other. I showed up. They listened to some of my old stuff. So what was cool about this process was imagine they created hip hop beats originally for me that they thought was like my style or sound. And just naturally, guess what? I walk in and I'm just like, yeah, I could hop on this with something quick, right? So like imagine the first song we did, I was done in like 10 minutes and this producer was just sold, right? And then while we're talking, imagine it just comes up the idea of like rockifying it. And this is something that I've asked other producers to do. I don't think they got my vision. This guy got it. So let's just say he came back with a few things that I loved, Snakes and Gates he sent my way, and I was like, you know what, this might be a good first like introduction of the new sound. So imagine it starts as a hip hop beat and then it's built around it. When it comes to this new stuff, I'm really intrigued with these people I'm talking to from the rock world. We've talked about starting from scratch. We've also talked about maybe recreating some of my old stuff into a rock format. I'm really curious.
Yeah.
I have a feeling half of it's going to be similar, where I kind of hop on hip hop beats and we build around it. Uh, but I think the rest is going to be like pure, authentic, starting from the beginning. And what's cool too is I have some people in my atmosphere that are like dying to be part of a band with me. So imagine I have multiple
Good.
people that are like listening to songs I have, and they're all sending me versions of what they think they could do. Uh, so like, it's really interesting. I don't know because I'm in this. One of my biggest, two of my biggest inspirations, David Bowie and Mac Miller.
Mm. Yeah, Bowie really just can inspire millions. Because, and I was telling somebody this the other day too. It's like, if I'm not even doing a lick of music, I'm into, film work and the visuals and stuff, which he was into. He's into so many different things. So I could see how it could be an influence for somebody like you.
Without a doubt. I went to his exhibit in Brooklyn, like the David Bowie exhibit, and it was just like a timeline of his career, everything he
Mm,
did, his failed bands, who he hung out with, uh, this version of this song, da 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 da, his creative process. And like you said, he was
mm,
brilliant. He was a genius. He was. I Part of me wonders if he was on the spectrum in the sense he had his
mm.
passions, right? But what also stood out to me, he knew that like he would be inspired by others from other walks of life. So like he hung
Yeah.
out with people, whether it was like New York City drag queens, right?
Right, right.
Whether
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
these rock stars, right? Whether it was Andy Warhol, right?
yeah.
Like, and kind of took it all in and made it part of who he was
Yeah.
too.
Did you
While
ever
keeping,
see David Bowie in that movie Basquiat? Did you
I have not, and I feel like such a crappy fan for saying I haven't.
Oh, it's a great movie. Independent movie that came out in the 90s, and he plays Andy Warhol in it.
All
This
right,
painter Basquiat, who was in New York and just died very young, but just this brilliant artist. But he was connected with Andy Warhol, and David Bowie played him. It's like, oh, I know David Bowie must have hung out with him, and he has his own take and his own impression on him. It's a fabulous movie if you ever get to see it. But I saw David Bowie years ago. Yeah, to see him live, and it's just like
so jealous,
legend, legend.
so jealous.
Yeah.
Even just like his whole fashion, like
Oh,
just alone, that's a study. I could sit there for
yeah.
hours looking at all of his outfits from different periods.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm very jealous. You
Yeah.
know what
Thankfully,
I
we
would
have the
do?
technology. You can,
Yes, they have full hologram concerts now. I'm hearing with.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah.
Um,
But good for you. How does the play on, is this a play on your last name? Is that were you coming up with the stage name?
so it's interesting. It's definitely a play on my last name, but there's a little more to it. Um, So believe it or not, I was late to the Instagram world, which became my biggest social media platform. Uh, I used to talk garbage about it, social media, all that type of stuff. But I was actually briefly married, uh, and my account was at one point kind of a shared account.
Uh,
So we were the Brady Bunch,
uh,
and let's just say a picture went viral, made the page kind of like I gained a lot of followers overnight. But it actually, ironically, was part of the breakdown of the relationship. So before you know it, I'm single. I have this account with this handle. I started making like the silly music that I shouldn't have been releasing yet. But I also knew like I had this legal battle. So part of me was like, yo, I'm going to use this platform as a way to never be silenced. So I
yeah.
tried different things out. As I got better with the music, suddenly I noticed as I'm sharing unreleased stuff and my stories and stuff, things are growing. People like 6ix9ine taught me the power of marketing. Uh, so imagine my Instagram grew, and I'd say part of it too was being more non-binary. Though I'm a non-binary trans woman, which confuses people. That's a whole nother topic, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I always tell people there's kind of like two of me. There's like the aggressive masculine energy and then like the soft feminine energy. And I would say when I was making the EDM, they actually were playing some of my EDM on some radio stations down south. Some This is part of the problem. A lot of people love my EDM but hate the rap and vice versa. And that's why I'm going to take stuff down and I might release the EDM under a side project name.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
but going back, basically, Brady Bunch is like the multiple personalities in one. That's what it's
Yeah.
become. And my last name's Brady. So it's like,
Makes
which
sense.
Brady are you gonna get today? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. It's catchy. always, gets us who really knew the actual Brady Bunch way back when. But yeah, that's really interesting. Well, it's been fantastic speaking with you. I really enjoyed this.
Me too. I
Yeah,
really appreciated it. And you know what? Maybe I'll be back down the line when this EP or LP's coming out. I don't know if you'd be open to it, but I had a lot of fun. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I hope people just gonna spell my name quick. Braydbunch. All one word is the artist name. If you want to check me out on Instagram, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, the song's coming out shortly. I'm hoping it goes live by 12 on those other platforms. If not, hopefully by tomorrow. But yeah, I hope you're all ready for the next edition of Brady Bunch. And my little pup back here wanted to say thank you all too.
Absolutely. Oh, sweet. Ah. What kind of dog is that?
A Yorkie,
Yorkie, the way
a
kind of
very
sound.
overly fluffy, needs a haircut Yorkie.
Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Very sweet. Well, best wishes to you. And we'll talk with you again one day.
Without a doubt. Talk
Take
soon.
care. Have a
Have a
good
good
one. Bye-bye.